Oli, oli, oli. Welcome back to another episode of Fruta Fresca with I, Jose Richard Aviles, El Chile Pa Tu Fruta. Yes. I feel like now folks are repeating along with us. Or like you're waiting for that moment in anticipation. Like, it's coming. El Chile Pa Tu Fruta. Ay, cuántas frutas se comieron hoy. Qué fuerte. Listen, we are back for another episode. I hope you've been enjoying the last couple of episodes. I don't get enough of them. Again, we're coming back for another conversation with... Miren, amigas, okay, bueno, this is a 2-for-1 special que les estamos dando. Aquí on the podcast, you know that I'm working on a project called Papi Issues. I stay shamelessly plugging that project, and I'm like, bitch, I just got one photo shoot done. Oh, God. I'm behind. Pero y'all know I've been working on a project called Papi Issues, and one of the running jokes is that and y'all know this on the podcast, that I always give the shout-outs to the daddies. And the person that I have here today is... First and foremost, a prima. So check this. My last name is not very common, Aviles. And growing up, I only knew like 2 other Avileses, and they were my cousins, my primas. So every time I meet someone who shares the same last name as I do, automatically prima. I don't even know you, where you from, prima. And I remember very much so we had our first conversation. We were talking and like a lot of good conversation and art and social justice. It was fun. And then at one point I was like, okay, I get it, but like also daddy. And daddy. So, amigas, let me bring to you Mito Aviles, Art Commissioner of the City of West Hollywood, my primas, and daddy. How are you doing?
Hola, mi gente. I am great. Thank you for having me today. How exciting to be here.
Qué fuerte, amigas. Escucharon eso, ¿verdad? I'm really appreciating folks who come in with their voices. I'm like, bitch, you be sounding bomb on the earphones. A lot of folks sound bomb on the earphones. How you been? How's your day been going?
You know, I've been good. Can't complain, really. Yeah. Summer's off to a great start. And here we are talking about politics and art and the LGBTQ community. Let's do it.
Di que el chisme. So this is being recorded on July 5th. Pero di que el chisme de que... Oh, I don't know if I should have said that. My bad. Pero el chisme was that it was the hottest day recently.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday. Hottest day in recorded history. Qué fuerte.
Global warming.
Les dije, cabrones, agárrense, vayan a comprar agua, guárdenla, tengan su package ahí ready, porque más vale, imagínate tú que tiemble, güey. ¡Ay! ¡Qué fuerte! ¡Qué fuerte! But you know, it's so funny, like you said, definitely climate change and global warming is something like we can turn back now, bitch. Mm-mm. Like, you know, the Canada fires, but they ended up in New York. Like, that moment, like, yeah, bitch, is a world problem.
You can't turn back time now.
Baby. And you know what? And a lot of the reason it was hot yesterday is because you're here today.
Ay, qué caliente.
Qué fuerte, amigas. I had to. Well, listen, before we get into the conversation, I have to ask you, and I feel like the listeners are like ready for this. I have to ask you the question that we ask every guest that comes to the podcast. I checked yesterday, and bitch, we're 37 episodes deep. Shout out to that.
What?
If you were to be a fruta, what kind of fruit would you be and why?
What? That's a deep question. I'm going to say un plátano.
Ay, amigas. Ay, sí. Why?
Porque son muy ricos.
Ay. Ay, amigas, es que the way the prima looked at me, bitch, see, that's how I know. I know when it is prima talking and when it's daddy talking, and it's bad. This episode, ahorita les encuentro ahí un BTS para que vean mi cara en Instagram. Make sure to follow us at frutafresca.podcast. A plátano just because it's rico.
Es muy rico, sí.
¿Y cómo te gusta comértelo?
Con chile.
Espérame. Espérame, amiga. Espérame, ¿cómo qué chile le pones al plátano?
Un poquito de tajín,
wow.
Un poquito de limón.
Ay, al plátano.
Y nos vamos al plátano, sí. Es muy rico.
Yo iba a decir milkshake, amigas, o plátano frito, pero me dijo plátano con chile, qué fuerte. Ay, amigas, ya ven las indirectas, bitch. I feel like the hottest day on earth is this room, bitch.
Sweltery.
Ay, no. Well, Mito, I want to start off by asking you a question because the first time we connected, we talked a little bit about your art practice, and I would love for the rest of the listeners to hear about that because you have a long, beautiful, beautiful art trajectory. Who also happens to do performance art, so I love it.
Yeah.
Cuéntanos.
Bueno, yeah. I've been in art. Art's been my passion for since I was a kid, maybe a long time. I'm not going to disclose my age or how many years, but a long time.
Hashtag daddy.
But I started with oil painting, and I started at a very young age. I started at 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I just loved it. I love the tactile. I love the way that you can manipulate the paint and the fact that it doesn't dry very fast. So you can go ahead and just kind of alter when you can or when you want to. So I did love that. I do love that about oil painting. But after that, I just kind of like started doing more writing, more creative writing, more in the space of children's books.
Interesting.
Because there's a message that comes from a children's book that I feel like everyone resonates to. Doesn't matter the age or who you are, you just resonate to it because it's such basic language that if, children can go ahead and pick up on it as an adult, as you're reading, you can go ahead and learn something too.
Right.
Yeah. So those are two of my favorite passions. And then I just kind of started getting into the mannequin, three-dimensional sculpture, which is awesome because like a lot of people don't know or have an aversion to mannequins. So I launched a business called Oh Mannequin and All Things Visual with my business partner. And I since then have kind of taken a pivot and just kind of focused on literally empowering artists and how in the creative space of within politics.
100%.
But the business was basically like we had all the major motion picture studios and all like the big, all the big installations that we were able to do and get. So a lot of it was all 3-dimension. So you walk in experiential because I feel like now art people want to go ahead and like engage with it.
Yeah.
Because it's important. People, like now in this day and age where it's just like social media and like even after COVID, people want to be like interactive and see what else is out there and how we can go ahead and just kind of explore art in a different form.
Yeah.
So to me, it's I love it. It's great.
No, I love that. Interestingly enough, I love what you said about children's book. I would be remiss if I didn't say that just because we were talking last week about Little Libros. And I think they do that really, really well. In our last episode with Sin Gonzalez from Savi Su Lunch, who also works with Little Libros, was, exactly that's what we were kind of talking about. So I love that. That's happenstance. I'm wondering now, as you're mentioning how you transition from oils and that oils being something that doesn't like dry, it takes longer to dry. I can see some correlation about being able to go back into like a mannequin space or a 3D work, right? Because it's so there's a fine line between when it starts and when it ends. I love that so much about performance art for that matter. And the fact that the audience is really the piece. I feel like a lot of people in performance art, I've learned that a lot of it, the art that people think it's happening, it's not the art itself, but it's rather these conditions and how you respond to my work. It's the art. I did a piece called Sabor a mí, where I was in an installation art piece and I was sitting down looking like Frida Kahlo. Let me be for real. Let me be real. And I had like a menu of services that could happen. And one of it was like, because it looked like Frida Kahlo, I was like, come and take a picture of me and recreate the image. I thought it was hilarious. Another one was take a shot with me of tequila. Another was feed me strawberries. Another was make out with me and like bite me. And I just remember, this is pre-pandemic, but I just remember like I had to sit out there for an hour and a half. And the performance, I think the endurance and discipline that comes from performance was being able to be present for an hour and a half. That's 90 minutes, bitch. I haven't said what the fuck.
It's a long time.
And the interesting thing that the art then becomes the people, because I remember that I could hear people walking all around me, pero nadie se atrevía a besarme. And I remember at some point I felt all these emotions about insecurity and desirability. I got pissed and then I just shouted out the poem that I was supposed to do after. And people were like, what the fuck? I could just feel the energy around me change. But it's interesting where that performance was not going to be about that until the audience made me feel that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my question to you is what has been another correlation that you found, or that transition between going from like something visual to something physical? Because I don't know, I'm not a visual artist.
I mean, I think it boils down to tactile, and it boils down to what's going to evoke an emotion in people. Because I feel like if you go ahead and use 3 dimension already, straight up from jump, it is evoking an emotion. Why? Because you relate to it differently.
100%.
A mannequin evokes an emotion in people that is just like, I'm either scared or I don't know or I love it. So it just kind of runs the gamut.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think I know it's where it's at. It's just kind of like what comes up for you. And it could be a lot of different things. You know, it could be like either trauma based or some PTSD in there. It just kind of, you don't really know, you don't really engage. And I think that's the beauty about art, the fact that it's subjective and you can go ahead and immerse yourself in it and
100%.
truly just like enjoy it for what it is and what it means to you.
100%. I love that so much. And again, I go back. The only thing that came to my mind was this notion. I once did a piece that to me was about immigration reform. Y que no sé qué, que no sé cuándo. Then I had someone come up to me and was like, oh my God, I loved your penguin piece. I was like, wait, what?
Penguin piece.
And she was like, yeah, they move like penguins, like this little movement here and the thing. And I was like, really? I was like, okay, down. So I never caught that piece ever again about immigration reform. I was like, it's about penguins.
The penguin piece.
The penguin piece, bitch. Oh my God, there's probably a video somewhere in the archive. I love what you said, right? And I want to transition us a little bit to what you're doing now. Or also want to ask, because you just had an art show not too long ago, no?
Helped produce an art show.
You're producing an art show long ago. I want to hear a little bit about that. What you said about the art being having an opportunity to like invoke emotions in people. Now you want to add the element of politics.
Yeah.
And it's a very particular emotion that we're trying to get from folks. You know what I mean? So I'm interested to hear a little bit tell me about the show that you produced first, and then I want to just talk about your current role now.
So the show that I put on with the help of another person, it was called Little Man, and Little Man in Finnish is mannequin. And so the show was very much about mannequin, and also the artist who was my former business partner he is a little man for every sense of the word, just height wise, he's a little man. And he loved that was a play on words. And I love that because that's like self-deprecation. I feel like that happens with like comedy, and comedy is also an art form. Yeah. So for him to just kind of be like, yeah, that makes sense. I love that. I was like, yeah, you get it. It clicked. And so we put it on, and it was, again, a 3-dimensional show where it was immersive and you can go ahead and engage and interact. And there was, Instagrammable moments. So it just really led the viewer down this sort of history of where what mannequin art is, or where it started, and the mannequin art, because now it's a dying art. I mean, like mannequins nowadays are just like few and far, and yes, you see them at like Forever 21 or different department stores, but they just don't look the same anymore. They're not like these beautiful sculptures like they used to be. Now it's just kind of like hodgepodge stuff that you can get.
Because I feel like a lot of the times, at least I remember, it's interesting that we're talking about mannequin art. But I remember maybe like in the early 2000s, late 90s, growing up, I feel like mannequins usually had like very intricate poses. You know what I mean? It wasn't a standard sort of mannequin. I feel like you can also find those moments, but I feel like what I enjoyed were like in some places, in some department stores, I remember whole little tableaus being created with mannequins and poses, so there's so much to say and to tell.
So much. And they do evoke, like, again, they have their own personalities and they all have names.
So question, how do you feel about, have you seen like on YouTube or on the social medias, like these pranks that people do when they dress up as mannequins and scare people? What do you think about that?
I think it's hilarious. I think it is the funniest thing ever. Why? Because people, again, there's a fear there that it lies within those people, and they just look at that mannequin when they're walking through Target or whatever, and they're just like, ooh, that bitch better not come to life. And guess what?
Okay. I'm curious to hear now. So tell us a little bit about your role now as commissioner, art commissioner. What's that
commissioner,
mean?
Yeah. So now I am the Arts and Cultural Affairs Commissioner for the City of West Hollywood. Yeah. So my role is essentially to just do that, to bring art, creativity, and culture into a city. Yeah. Obviously, making sure that there's diversity, inclusivity, and inclusion in that whole space.
100%.
Especially in a city like West Hollywood, where it's predominantly white, and you're just 100%. Kind of like trying to see, like, yeah, I'm a gay person, but I'm not white. There's a lot of other gay people that live within the city of West Hollywood that don't necessarily, that aren't white.
100%.
But so what I want to bring is I want to bring that art that has them see themselves within it.
100%.
So my whole focus is making sure that we have theater in the park that's free and accessible for everybody, that the art that comes in is diverse. So then that way you can go ahead and see some representation because that shit matters, you know? Like
100%.
you want to go ahead and walk down the street and be like, "Ah, that's some dope ass art." And I also see
Yeah.
myself in that.
Yeah. Also, let me just be clear.
See.
I'm talking to Mito Aviles, the
See?
person that wears all these hats. I mean, you know, if they give you shit at the city of West Hollywood, let me know because she's an urban planner too, and she is a household name.
Yeah.
What? Y la queso. No, no es cierto. I first discovered West Hollywood when I was 15
Oh.
because of the 705 bus.
Oh my God.
The one that goes right behind the PDC. That's the Vernon bus, and I grew up on Vernon. And so I remember always being like, what the fuck is West Hollywood? Because I would see it, you know, the destination. And I never knew what it was. And then I think one time I just ended up asleep on the bus. And somehow I ended up at the end of the line. And it was West Hollywood. And I was like, ¿qué es esto? I like 15 full. And I was like, what is this? Pero te iba a preguntar, what has been the response into trying in the work of doing, because I'm also interested in your position from like a city government place, right? Because even though I'm not a commissioner or anything like that, I still work in relationship with city government, so I understand.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine like what has been the response in those spaces and the way that you're doing the work.
You know, it's been really favorable because I feel like now it's something that people want.
Yeah.
Now that there's more of a conversation and a chatter around it, a chatter about equity and a chatter about inclusion. People are like, "Oh, wow. Who knew we needed that? We always needed that. We always needed that." But also, it's just like
Sorry. So are you saying that art commissioner is the longest running performance art piece of your career?
Well, stay tuned.
Ay, qué fuerte. She looked at me like, bitch, I plead the fifth.
Allegedly.
I know, qué fuerte. I shout out to Wendy Williams. How you doing?
How you doing?
I love her. Sorry.
She's the best. She is the best. But yeah, I mean, I think. Say the question again.
What has been the response? You were talking about it's been favorable.
It has been favorable, and it's also working in a team, you know, because it's
Cool.
you know, I have the team that I work with, who's the staff at the City of West Hollywood for the arts department, and then I have the 5-6 other commissioners that we actually have to make decisions on and vote. So it's like getting to also have them be aligned with you, because if not, then your stuff doesn't get passed. And like, you know, you have artists that have this amazing body of work,
100%,
but they're not getting seen because someone has some sort of personal bias around it, or you know what I mean. So in this way, as long as we're all working together, then we can get like some really, working together, we can definitely get some stuff done that, you know, that's good stuff that makes impact.
Yeah. So you know what? I love that they were gonna go here. So just in general, I would love to hear your take, because what I'm hearing, and again, this is not implying that this is what's happening, just in general as a commentator, you know, in the situation. Do you think that there is sort of like, or has there been this gatekeeping of what gayness is? And I'm being very particular about gayness, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. Yeah, of course. I mean, like, just growing up and just, I think being gay or showing your gayness or being part of the LGBTQ community, people automatically put you in a box,
100%.
you know, and it's in a box that they perceive, and it could be like cisgender people, like, that perceive you in that certain way. Oh, you're a gay man. Oh, this is what I think a gay person is, or a gay man is. But that might not be who you are. You may be a gay man, but you may be a little queer, a little this, a little that, you know what I mean? So it kind of runs the gamut when it comes to stuff like that, I feel like. So,
because then in turn, then you have an idea of what the type of art should be. And so when you find, I think what's happening a lot now in the art world, I said this before, I don't remember when, but I'm calling it the counter narrative. Because you know how like there's all these movements and shit in art worlds and shit like that. And so I think the movement that we're in I'm calling it the counter narrative, where I think we're just coming to a place where I'm not here for like phallic centric art anymore that a lot of gay men do. And also it's like, girl, the motif of a white shirtless man is not new. Just ask Michelangelo, bitch. Like, what the fuck?
Word.
You know what I mean? So
Yes.
I feel like there's a lot of artists who are creating from a place of identity, but our identities are queer, are brown, are working class, are, you know, non-binary, all these different things. And now we're like, you know, I'm gonna say, yeah, where I feel like I found similar spaces like that. I feel like I show up more, to be real. I always say that I'd rather be the only queer person in a bar full of people of color than to be the only person of color in a gay man bar.
Interesting. How
Yeah.
come?
I don't know what it is. I think a little bit of it has to be maybe at the fact that I came out at a very young age, And so again, I ran into West Hollywood at 15, and at that time I was on the bus. Haciendo el pericazo, dices tú, ay, qué fuerte, no lo hagan, amigas, no lo hagan, qué fuerte. Ay, un día les cuento ese chisme. We'll do a show called Callejera, and I'll tell you all my crazy stories from high school. But no, I just remember and getting into those spaces, getting into the arena, for Tiger Heat, because girl, they didn't card. They didn't card.
They look the other way. Like, oh, you look that age. Okay.
Oh, what's up? They only carded if you were about to drink. So I was like, I'm not gonna drink. Dejaban entrar 18 plus night. Ay, no, qué fuerte. Or circus. Oh my God.
Man. All these staples that are no longer around.
100%.
I know, like literally LA staples, like culture hubs.
I'm curious to hear from you and your opinion on, because I think a lot of your work as cultural strategy in some ways. How would you, in your opinion, define cultural strategy, and would you consider yourself a cultural strategist?
I'm going to start with yes, I do consider myself a cultural strategist, and how I see it is because it's the bigger conversation that needs to be had. It's the conversation that people are uncomfortable with, or they don't know how to start that conversation. So I want to just take that away from them and just be like, let me just go ahead through what I'm doing, have you speak about what we're doing, have you go ahead and have this attention, now be focused on what it is that I'm putting out there. Why? Because you probably never thought about it before, and I experienced that a lot with people who are just like, oh, wow, you see it like that? Oh, wow, I would have never seen it like that with art. And it's just like, yeah, of course not, because that's not where your mind went, or where you would go ahead and have that conversation with, your friends or your family members or whatever. So for me, it's just like being able to have that where I may like culturally putting stuff out there that's going to be of impact for the city of West Hollywood, which is a major city. It's a cultural hub, loosely used, for, I think the entire United States, because you look at it, it's 1.9 square miles. And in those 1.9 square miles, you have so much happening.
Yeah.
Where America is just like, they don't even have a block, and it's just like they can't even go ahead and associate themselves or know about it. But here's 1.9 square miles of just pushing the envelope, progress, and that's what I want to continue doing. It's just making sure that I push the envelope and push it forward.
Yeah, I love how you said that. I mean, West Hollywood, it's like it's a 1.9 square miles of a lot of jotería, pero de esa sin sal.
Sí, sin sal.
Sin sal.
Sí.
No tiene sazón, amigas.
Bland ass shit.
Qué fuerte. I mean, kind of, sort of. I know, sí. Es que sí, güey. I don't like it. I remember. And the other thing is, it's so packed. And like, if I'm going to go, I want to go dance. And usually the thing that moves me to dance, I don't mind dancing in a packed-ass dance floor. Pero si es cumbia o merengue o bachata, salsa, that shit needs to be sweaty. Cachete, cuerpo con cuerpo.
Ay.
Oh my God, see you this Friday at Cumbiaton. Qué fuerte.
You'll see me there for sure.
Ay. No. So I just remember one time being at Trunks. And the other thing that I get, it gets so packed, but I've discovered that since pandemic, I've become much more like agoraphobic. Like, I can't do big crowds. I need to know where the exit's at.
Yep.
And I remember that night in particular, it was just so packed. And I was like, oh my God, don't touch me. I can't do this. And I was like, I can't. And the music wasn't even that great. I mean, it's not my cup of tea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I love the work that's happening. And yes, I will agree with you and say that I think a lot of the time, 1.9 square miles of joteria sin sal, but also a cultural hub for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of folks, and again, this is why I say it's very transplant. I know so many people who live in West Hollywood who are not queer.
So many.
And they're just like, yeah, it's just West Hollywood.
But you know what it is? I mean, it's because we beautified it, we made it safe, and guess who started coming knocking on our doors? The white folks. The Becky's with the good hair.
Becky with a good hair.
Love
Shout
you,
out to all the
Beyonce.
folks who have been joining the Renaissance.
Yes.
See you August 26th, B. Ah! Qué fuerte. I love. When the fuck did I start doing all the shameless plugs on this episode? This is new. I never done some shit like this. It's every shout out, every
Start
hashtag.
tagging. Start
Literally,
tagging.
for real. I no. Nothing like that's gonna happen. Bueno, I want to do a little section, yeah, kind of to close us up in this last half of last quarter bit act. I don't know. I wanted to ask you a couple questions. I feel like a lot of the times there's also a lot of artists who listen to the podcast, which I'm super grateful for, and creative people because we've talked since season 1 that anyone literally can be an artist and everyone has the potential to create.
Yes.
And it's so, I feel like it's so liberatory in this now in age, even if it's like whatever you feel like you want to create, but creating something, I think that's important. So there's shout out to all the folks who are creating in this time of consumption.
That's deep.
That was deep.
See, shout out to them.
I want to hear any pro tips, because also, let's be very real, a lot of art making, I think that I had to learn that art goes from being a hobby to being a business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So any tips that you give to artists who are wanting to take their art to the next level, look for funding? I think it's from your position, you have a lot of insight, so I'm curious to hear some tips.
Yeah, one of the things that I learned going into my role is the fact that there is money out there. There's lots of money out there, especially for the arts, and there's lots of money to be had, but most people don't know how to tap into that. So where I start is just kind of like whatever city you're in, wherever in this United States, or however the reach of this podcast is, go to your city. And ask your city, like, what programming do you have? What arts programming do you have? What grants do you have for artists? You'd be surprised. Some of them may have some that can go ahead and help you out. Because I know that the city of West Hollywood, our grants program is epic. It's bar none. We just closed it July 1st for this go around, but then we're having our winter one that's going to come up in the next couple months. So if you follow at WeHo Arts on social on Instagram, you'll go ahead and get the updated sort of dates for the new grant cycle. But also there's art nonprofits out here. The County of Los Angeles has an arts program here that you literally can tap into. So I would say start there. Another thing would be, if you're trying to get recognition or get your name out there, start with social media. Start putting your stuff out there. Create what I think one of the things that is a miss is the fact that people think that you have to have an elaborate website. You don't need an elaborate website. You could just have a one-pager and you can collect people's emails, because emails are gold. More gold than social media, more gold than Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of it. Why? Because that is rented space. What's not rented space is email, because you can go ahead and tap into that and send whatever information you want to go ahead and have people know about, whether it be, hey, I'm having an art sale, or hey, I'm doing this art thing, or hey, I'm needing a GoFundMe or funding or whatever. You can just send that out directly to people without having to go ahead and have this borrowed sort of sphere of social media. So I'd say start there, and you'll see it just takes a little bit of effort, and you'll start seeing the fruits of your labor start just kind of like popping up, and you can go ahead and just collaborate with other artists too, if you'd like, because there's so much art and creativity here. Like you said, the people who create, the artists here, there's a lot of us, and there's a lot of people who are looking and itching to be like, how do I get there? How do I go to the next level? Collaborate, put yourself out there, and also make sure that you go for grants that there are out there, for public grants for artists and creatives.
100%. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Artists out there who want to collaborate with Fruta Fresca, please follow us at frutafresca.podcast. Send us a DM. We'll talk. Ay, no. Qué fuerte. Te digo que yo me siento la periodista hoy. I love it. No, thank you so much for that information. I'm curious, one last question before we get to our favorite section on this podcast.
See.
I'm so excited to do it with you. I no. See, the producer's laughing because the producer knows. Amigues, ya se sabe. Empieza con rap y termina con litas. So what do you feel was a moment, or how do you think, an artist can be like, okay, cool, I've been doing this now for like a couple years. I've been doing the pop-ups, the exposure. What do you I'm ready. If it's not a grant, what are some other things that an artist can do? Or when you're looking at grants, what are things that make artists stand out to you?
I'd say if they're looking to put their art out there, I would say, like, go to galleries. Just connect with people. Walk in there and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm an artist. I want to go ahead and exhibit. When's your next exhibition?" Most galleries do group shows, which they either do it once or twice a year. If you can get in a group show, then I mean, like, it's already exposure. You know, it's a matter of how you approach it and how confident you are about it. But if you're a diehard artist and a creative who is out there legit being creative and making art, just do it all. Do it all. Yeah.
I think that's definitely a big takeaway. I mean, I was telling the producer earlier, we were talking, and I was at a couple of spaces. And of course, that question that you get everywhere, what do you do? That's a question that people always ask. And I was like, oh, I'm an artist. And then I was telling the producer, I was like, I said I was a podcaster. Because I feel like I do everything. You know what I mean? Like, people know that I trained as an artist, and a dancer, and a choreographer, a bitch is an urban planner, and talking about arts and culture. I've done a little bit of everything. And, now we're here, and shout out to Fruta Fresca and all of you who've been listening. Curious. It's so funny. We had a little moment, so we're getting towards the end of the podcast. Thank you for coming, by the way.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This is fun.
It is fun. Talking a lot of shit.
Just talking a lot of shit. It's great.
It's great.
I love it. That's all we do. I remember getting that text message from you being like, is this you?
Yes.
Do you want to tell folks what I mean by that?
Well, which one? I feel like there's been a couple of them.
Stop. I'm like, no, not those. This one.
Oh, that one. So yes. That's right. I went to an art show in Culver City.
Oh, yeah.
And I was walking around the art show just because I love going to art shows and just seeing what's out there and seeing like what other artists I can go ahead and, approach. But I'm walking around and all of a sudden I look and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm all, is that Nalgona over there? So literally I take my phone out and I snap a picture and I send immediately to you. And I was like, is this you? She said, I'm a work of art.
But not you remembering. Damn, sí, también, bitch. Así los tengo. Miren, de mí no se olvidan. De mí no se olvidan.
A work of art.
Yeah, shout out to Santiago, who was the artist who did that beautiful painting.
Yes, it's so beautiful.
Of me. And it was out there. And that's been such a humbling experience. Well, let me get to the good stuff. Just to wrap us up, we're gonna do something called rapiditas.
Okay.
And las rapiditas, I'm just gonna give you two options, and you're just gonna decide the first one that comes to mind.
This is so meta.
So meta. I know, I love it, right? Isn't it
good?
good?
It's good.
You good?
Yeah.
Ready? Okay, let's go. Y dice, I know I was gonna go really hard. Espérame. Oh, pancakes or waffles?
Neither. Carbs.
Oh, shut up. Get away. See, that's that prima talking bullshit. Cállate, pendeja. No.
Tortilla.
Ay, cállate. También. Stop trying to make up for it. Shut up. Ay, shut up. Pupusas o tacos?
I love them both, but I'm going to say pupusas.
También salvadoreña la amiga.
Sí.
De noche o de día?
De día.
¿La playa o el bosque?
La playa. I'm a Pisces.
Are you a Pisces?
Pisces Aries, yeah.
Oh, God.
Swim through those waters.
I know. I got triggered, yo. I went somewhere. La playa, el forest, you said la playa, Pisces. ¿Arriba o abajo?
En medio.
Ay, qué fuerte. Eso se le dice side. Learned that the other day.
Did you really?
I did. Perdón, las rapiditas. Ay, qué fuerte. ¿Muerdes o rasguñas?
Ay, me gustan los dos, pero digo muerdo.
Ay, qué fuerte. ¿Con pelo o sin pelo?
Ay, ¿en dónde?
¿Grande o grueso?
Grueso.
¿Me llamas o te llamo?
Me llamas.
Yes, Daddy. ¡Ay, qué fuerte! Ay, amigas, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Before we go, can you tell folks where to follow you? But don't give too much, though. No es cierto.
I'll give you my firstborn. You can find me at Mr. Treat, and that is Mr. MISTERTREAT on Instagram. Follow me there for all your art goodness.
Ay, sí, está bueno. Está bueno. Está bueno. Thank you so much for coming again. Mito Aviles.
Gracias.
What's up? Prima turned daddy, the 2 for 1. Thank you for coming back to another episode of Fruta Fresca with I, Jose Richard Aviles, el chile pa tu plátano. Bye.